the Gangkhar Puensum enigma. We live in an age where there are no blanks left on the map. We have been to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. We have stood on the moon. We have turned Mount Everest into a tourist trap with traffic jams in the death zone. But there is one exception. One massive, blindingly white pyramid of ice that refuses to be conquered. It is higher than 24,000 feet. It has defeated every single team that tried to climb it. And now, it is protected by a law that makes it illegal to even try. Locals say it is the home of the gods. Others say it is the sanctuary of the Yeti. But one thing is certain, Gangkhar Puensum does not want us there. And sometimes when a mountain says, "Stay away," you should listen. Intro. Welcome to the kingdom of Bhutan, the land of the thunder dragon. Hidden within its northern borders lies Gangkhar Puensum, the highest unclimbed mountain in the world. While climbers die trying to find new routes on Everest, this giant stands silent, pristine, and totally untouched. In the 1980s, the door was briefly opened. For elite expeditions tried to reach the top. They found maps that were wrong, rivers that shouldn't exist, and a psychological pressure that broke their resolve. Then the door was slammed shut. Today we are exploring the Gangkhar Puensum enigma. Why did the maps fail? What did the climbers see? And is the white peak of the three spiritual brothers truly protecting something that humanity is not meant to see? This mountain is the last great prize of mountaineering, but it is a prize that can never be claimed. If you respect the power of nature to say no, hit that like button right now. And subscribe to Adventure Hidden, because we are going where no climber is allowed to tread. Chapter 1, The Geography of the Impossible, the Mountain That Moved. You might wonder, how can a mountain that is 7,570 meters high hide? How do you lose a mountain? The cartographic nightmare. For most of the 20th century, Gangkhar Puensum was a ghost. Early British expeditions mapped it in the wrong place. 1922, it was mapped precisely, but entirely incorrectly. The border issue. The mountain sits on the ill-defined border between Bhutan and Tibet, China. Because Bhutan was isolated from the world for centuries, no Western surveyors were allowed in to verify the location. The consequence? When the first mountaineers finally got permission to enter Bhutan in the early 1980s, they walked into a logistical nightmare. They would look at their maps, walk to where the mountain was supposed to be and find nothing. Or they would find the mountain, but realize it was miles away from where their permits allowed them to be. Imagine the psychological toll, trekking for weeks through dense jungle and vertical passes, only to find that reality does not match the map. The mountain seemed to be moving, shifting its position to evade the climbers. Was it just bad mapping, or was it the first sign that this place did not play by our rules? Chapter 2, The Window of Opportunity, the 1980s expeditions. In 1983, Bhutan briefly opened its doors to high-altitude mountaineering. The race was on. The world's elite climbers scrambled to be the first to conquer the last great virgin peak. They had the gear, they had the funding, and they had the ego. They failed miserably. The British attempt, 1986. The most famous failure was the 1986 British expedition led by Stephen Barry. They were serious. They were prepared. And they were absolutely crushed by the environment. The approach? They had to hack their way through pristine, leech-infested rhododendron forests where no human had walked before. The weather? As soon as they established base camp, the weather turned apocalyptic. Violent storms, which seemed to originate from the peak itself, battered them for weeks. The illness? Members of the team began to suffer from unexplained illnesses and high-altitude fatigue that felt heavier than usual. The turning point? They eventually realized that the map coordinates they had been given put the mountain in China, while they were standing in Bhutan. To climb it would be to cause an international border incident. Defeated by politics, weather, and bad maps, they turned back. They reported a strange, oppressive feeling, a sense that they were intruders in a sacred realm. The cliffhanger? But while the British turned back, the locals were watching. They warned the climbers that the deities of the mountain were angry. And when the weather turned bad, the locals didn't blame the pressure systems. They blamed the climbers. Chapter 3, The Spirit Realm, Why Locals Fear the Peak. To a Western climber, a mountain is a pile of rock and ice to be conquered. To a Bhutanese Buddhist, a mountain is a living citadel of the gods. The name, Gangkhar Puensum, translates to White Peak of the Three Spiritual Brothers. It is not dead matter, it is the physical residence of powerful protective deities. The taboo. In Bhutanese culture, the summit is the most sacred part of the mountain. It is where the air is purest and the spirits reside. To stand on the summit is to trample on the head of a god. It is an act of supreme disrespect. The consequence of climbing. When the expeditions in the 80s failed, the local yak herders were not surprised. But they were terrified. They believed that the intrusion of the foreigners had disturbed the spirits. The omens. Following the expeditions, locals reported bad harvests, strange storms, and sickness in their yak herds. They petitioned the government, "Stop the climbers or the gods will destroy us." This wasn't just superstition, it was a national outcry. The climbers viewed the mountain as a challenge, the locals viewed it as a protector. The clash between the desire to conquer and the desire to protect is what makes this story so unique. If you believe some places should remain sacred and untouched, type "Respect the Mountain" in the comments below. Chapter 4. The Yeti Connection, the Sakdeng Sanctuary. But there is another legend hiding in the shadow of Gangkhar Puensum. A legend that walks on two legs. The Migoi. Bhutan is perhaps the only country in the world that takes the Yeti, locally known as the Migoi, seriously enough to protect it by law. Sakdeng Wildlife Sanctuary. Near the region of the mountain lies a 250-square-mile national park created specifically to preserve the habitat of the Migoi. It is an official government designation. The creature, the Bhutanese Migoi, is described differently than the Himalayan Yeti. It is said to have brown hair, can turn invisible, and sometimes walks backwards to trick trackers. The theory. Some cryptozoologists believe that Gangkhar Puensum's extreme isolation and the dense, unexplored forests at its base make it the last likely stronghold for a relict hominid population. By banning climbers, is Bhutan protecting the spirits, or are they protecting a biological secret? Chapter 5. The Ban, Closing the Door Forever. By 1994, the Bhutanese government had made a decision that shocked the mountaineering world. They chose gross national happiness over the revenue of climbing permits. The 1994 law, the government banned climbing on mountains higher than 6,000 meters. This effectively placed Gangkhar Puensum out of reach. The 2003 law, in 2003 they went further. Under pressure from religious leaders, all mountaineering in Bhutan was banned. The mountains were declared sacred. The significance. This decision cost Bhutan millions in potential tourism revenue. But it preserved their cultural integrity. Gangkhar Puensum became a symbol of Bhutan's identity. A place that money could not buy. The cliffhanger. But just because Bhutan closed the door didn't mean everyone stopped trying. One team found a loophole. A loophole that nearly sparked a war. Chapter 6. The 1998 Japanese loophole, the almost ascent. The mountain sits on the border. Bhutan said no. But China? China said yes. The Japanese expedition. In 1998, a Japanese mountaineering team pulled a clever trick. They obtained a permit from the Chinese Mountaineering Association to climb Gangkhar Puensum from the north side, the Tibetan side. They didn't need Bhutan's permission if they stayed on the Chinese face. The diplomatic crisis. The team was funded, ready, and en route. But Bhutan was furious. They launched a diplomatic protest with Beijing. China, valuing its relationship with Bhutan, bowed to the pressure and revoked the permit for the main peak at the last minute. The compromise. Unconquered, the Japanese team was already there. They were desperate. As a consolation, they were allowed to climb a subsidiary peak, Unconquered, 7,535 m, which is connected to Gangkhar Puensum by a long ridge. The view. On May 9, 1999, the Japanese team stood on the summit of Unconquered. They looked across the razor-sharp ridge toward the main summit of Gangkhar Puensum. It was right there. Close enough to touch. They had the skill to cross the ridge. The decision, but they didn't. They turned back. Whether out of respect for the revoked permit, fear of the weather, or the sheer difficulty of the ridge, they left the main peak virgin. It was the closest any human has ever come. Chapter 7. The Final Verdict, the Mountain That Won. Today, Gangkhar Puensum remains the highest unclimbed point on Earth. In an era where Google Earth can zoom into your backyard, this mountain retains its mystery. There are rumors, always rumors, of rogue climbers attempting illegal ascents, but the terrain is so unforgiving and the approach so long that any secret attempt is likely a suicide mission. Gangkhar Puensum stands as a monument to restraint. It reminds us that we don't have to conquer everything we see. Some places are meant to be looked at, admired and feared but never touched. The white peak of the three spiritual brothers will likely remain unclimbed forever. And perhaps that is exactly how it should be. Outro. The map has no blank spaces, but Gangkhar Puensum proves it still has forbidden ones. The Yeti may or may not walk its slopes, but the spirits of the mountain certainly guard its solitude. If you enjoyed this trek to the Forbidden Mountain, please like this video and share it with your fellow adventurers. And for more thrilling journeys into the world's most incredible lost places and unsolved enigmas, make sure you are subscribed to Adventure Hidden. Until our next expedition, respect the wild and keep searching for the truth.